Hi everyone, welcome to the Highlights from Ukraine podcast, your daily audio summary of the latest news reported in the Ukrainian media. My name is Artem, and here is the news. For 557 days, Ukraine stands strong against the forces of the Russian invasion. In his evening video address, President of Ukraine Volodymyr Zelenskyy confirmed previous rumors and announced that he decided to replace the Minister of Defense of Ukraine and will suggest it to the parliament. He stressed that current Minister Oleksiy Reznikov has gone through more than 550 days of full-scale war. Quote, I believe that the ministry needs new approaches and other formats of interaction with both the military and society at large. Now Rustem Umerov should lead the ministry, said Zelenskyy. Umerov is currently heading the State Property Fund of Ukraine. The president believes that Ukraine has to launch membership negotiations with the European Union in the coming months. He stressed that Ukraine has 7 specific recommendations from the European Commission and has already implemented some of them. The other part requires the effective work of the Verkhovna Rada of Ukraine. The law on the restoration of electronic declaration, amendments to the law on national minorities, and the law on politically exposed persons. Each of these laws is of fundamental importance, said Zelenskyy. He urged Ukrainian MPs not to postpone these decisions, not to let Ukraine down, and to support its European integration. Volodymyr Zelenskyy said he had a phone call with French President Emmanuel Macron. They discussed the needs of Ukrainian forces and protection of Odessa region. The president of Ukraine announced that France agreed to train Ukrainian pilots. We would really appreciate if you could rate us, ideally with 5 stars, in the apps where you are listening to this podcast, Google Podcast, Apple Podcast, Spotify, and others. This really helps more people to find out about the highlights from Ukraine and truth about Russia's invasion. Ukraine's Defense Minister Oleksiy Reznikov said that the armed forces of Ukraine will have F-16s for use at the front in the spring of 2024, reports Ukrinform. According to Reznikov, the prior refusal of partners to provide F-16s has never been a political issue. He explained that the West has been afraid of escalation and is trying not to drag NATO into a war with Russia. The minister said that he had written more than one letter of commitment that Ukraine would not use NATO weapons in Russia. He added that since the beginning of the full-scale invasion, international partners have already provided Ukraine with military aid worth about $100 billion, of which almost $60 billion came from the US alone. Maxim Kuzminov, the pilot of the Russian Mi-8 helicopter who defected to Ukraine, called on other Russian military pilots to follow his example, reports Ukrainska Pravda. The 28-year-old pilot informed that before switching sides, he was given safety guarantees, promise of new documents, and monetary compensation. Quote, what is happening now is simply the genocide of the Ukrainian people, both Ukrainian and Russian. The basis of my action is not to contribute to these crimes. Ukraine will definitely win this war simply because the people have rallied very much. No one wants this war. When Ukraine wins is only a matter of time, he said. On August 23rd, it became known that recently a Mi-8 helicopter of the Russian armed forces ended up in Ukraine as a result of a long-term special operation of the Defense Intelligence. The pilot and his family are in Ukraine. The family was taken out of the Russian Federation earlier. The Mi-8 remained in Ukraine along with parts for the fighter jets it was supposed to deliver to the Russians. Together with the helicopter, the pilot transported valuable documentation and secret technical equipment to Ukraine. Thank you for listening to the Highlights from Ukraine podcast. We are a commercial initiative of just 2 people and we need your help to grow. Share information about the podcast, rate us in the app, subscribe to our Patreon. With your support, we are getting better. We call on you to demand from governments of your countries to impose the toughest sanctions possible on Russia and its citizens to stop their invasion of Ukraine.